now 10 o'clock, and I will call to order the 223rd Brookfield Town Meeting. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence for townspeople who died in the last year and our servicemen who are overseas. At this time, I'm going to introduce the selectmen. I was going to introduce Bill Nelson, but he's not here. I think he'll be back momentarily. Rich Zacher, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Brian Robichaud. And we'll introduce Bill when he comes back. Are there any new residents in town present? Would you please stand and state your name?
Pam Stebbington. We finally moved here. We now live on Comeau down Dick Road permanently. We've owned property here, and Terry built our home 20 years ago. So we've been contributing, but now we're full-time residents.
Very good.
Very important. Thank you.
Terry, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Terry Ward.
Thank you. Are there any other over here?
Last name is Ravasic, Bob and Karen, live at 223 Governor's Road. We moved here last April the 8th officially, our first year, and we're from Pennsylvania, from down in the Allentown area.
Very good. Some of my favorite people came from Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up. So, very good. We're looking forward to your involvement. Any other new residents here today? Over here?
Okay. Chris and Lisa Haight, 510 Wentworth Road, we bought the old Fletcher Farm.
Welcome. Welcome. Behind you?
Tim and Sarah Stratton, who live at 380 East Mountain Road.
Welcome.
Familiar name.
Welcome. And over here?
Darlene and Steve Bailey, we moved here. January was our first full year here.
Welcome.
This is our first time meeting. So.
Yep, just up the road. That commute is horrible.
It was worse on Tuesday.
Yes,
Yes, we're at 245 over.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Any other new residents? Thank you for coming to the Brookfield Town Meeting. Is there anyone present who is not a registered voter? My son Sam is. I will remind you, Sam, that it's a misdemeanor if you try to vote. I have a couple announcements. People may be interested to know that there is quite the controversy about whether or not we should have postponed the election on Tuesday. There's currently a bill before the Senate that is being introduced on Tuesday, and if people are interested, I can give you the information. It's Senate Bill 248, and you can make comments. People may also be interested in knowing that I've wanted to have the town meeting on Saturday as opposed to Tuesday night for a great many years. This gives me a chance to actually see it happen. If we want to make that permanent, there is an RSA that would permit that to happen. 25 voters would have to petition the selectmen to do so. Are there any other announcements? Let's review the rules for the town meeting. There's one change in the rules, and I will make that clear. By state law, the moderator sets the rules and procedures of the meeting. We will not follow Robert's Rules of Order or any other complicated rules of parliamentary procedure. Instead, we will follow my rules. I cannot promise to run a perfect meeting, but I will do my best to run a fair meeting. Ultimately, though, this is your meeting. By majority vote, you can change my rules or override any decision that I make. Rules for debate. Only registered voters may speak unless the majority of the voters present decide otherwise. Those wishing to be recognized should raise their hands or stand. Once the moderator recognizes you, please state your full name. Only one person, the one recognized by the moderator, may speak at any one time. All speakers are expected to direct the debate to the moderator, and no conversations directed to others on the floor will be allowed. When you have the floor to speak, you should address the issue under consideration, or you may be ruled out of order. Any voter may question a procedural ruling by the moderator by asking to appeal the ruling to the body as a whole. A simple majority is required to overrule the moderator. Questions about the process are encouraged, as it may often seem confusing, but everyone should remember that debate leading to decision is the primary purpose of the meeting. Voting on articles. The moderator will not accept motions to call the question until his judgment all have had a fair opportunity to express their views. The moderator will not accept motions to table or indefinitely postpone an article. This is the change, without a reason for taking this action rather than simply voting down an article. If citizens want to dispose of an article, they should simply vote the article down. This prevents the confusion of people having to vote positively to dispose of an article. The moderator will only accept motions to pass over an article if more than one article in the warrant addresses the same question, and then only for the purpose of not confusing a decision reached by the meeting. Only one reconsideration of an article will be recognized. 7 voters are required to question my ruling on the outcome of a vote. If a voice vote is questioned, we will have a show of hands and or a division of the House. If the vote remains in question, we will have a secret ballot. This must happen before any other business occurs. Amendments. Motions to amend an article must be in writing. The clerk will have paper and pencils. The moderator will allow consideration of no more than one amendment at a time. That means no motions to amend a motion to amend. Amendments which simply negate the intent of the motion, such as inserting the word not, will be ruled out of order, as they confuse people as to which way they intend to vote. To repeat, if citizens want to dispose of an article, they should simply vote the article down. Any questions? I'd like to announce the results of voting on Tuesday. For selectmen, I declare that Richard Surratt is the winner with 60 votes. For auditor, I declare that Lori Champy is the winner with 62 votes. For planning board, I declare that David Champy is the winner with 48 votes, and Stephen Bailey also won election with 29 votes. William Zaida came in third with 21 votes. For trustee of the trust fund, I declare that Ken Comeau is the winner with 27 votes. For cemetery trustee, I declare that Tom Hill is the winner with 61 votes. And for supervisor of the checklist, I declare that Karen Severchek, who announced herself earlier this morning, is the winner with 60 votes. Thank you all for being willing to serve. As far as the warrants are concerned, Article number 1 passed. Article number 2, passed by a vote of 49 to 14. And Article number 3 passed by a vote of 51 to 12. The next article on the warrant is number 4. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be deposited in the Moose Mountain Capital Reserve Fund. Brian, I believe you wanted to make that motion?
Yes, I want to make the motion, and do a little bit more of an explanation.
Can we have a second first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll
Somebody
second.
like to second the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. We established this capital reserve fund a year ago because we have this bridge over on Moose Mountain that the state has deemed in need of major repairs and or replacement. Our road agent has confirmed this, and so we've established this fund to begin to build a capital reserve, so not to hit us with one large lump sum. The estimated repairs is over $100,000. So with this $20,000, we would have, I think, $35,000 in the account plus the 50-something thousand we transferred from a old trust fund. So we're getting close to the amount we need. In that this bridge is in need of repair, so it's not much of an option, but it's a nice way of budgeting it and getting it done without taking one major financial hit.
We're good. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 for the engineering study of the Moose Mountain Bridge repair, and to fund this appropriation by authorizing the withdrawal of said sum from the Moose Mountain Capital Reserve Fund. Brian, I think you want to make that motion?
I would like to, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Go ahead.
Same deal. This is the bridge, but we need engineers before we go and build a bridge. We need engineers to show us how to do it and do it properly. We have an estimate of around $30,000 to have the engineering done, and our road agent would work in tandem with them to go ahead and get this project done, hopefully this upcoming year.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be added to the Road and Bridge Repair Capital Reserve Fund. Bill, I believe you want to make that motion?
Let's make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Second. Go ahead, Bill.
We, about 10 plus years ago, made a decision as a town to start fixing the roads correctly, putting more money in rather than doing just little patch jobs here and there. We have traditionally put approximately $75,000 into that account each year, and we take out, depending on the road project, we try to take out 1 year a larger project, the second year a smaller project, and go back and forth. And this has been very helpful for the town, so we don't have one big hit in a particular year. So this money would put this into the reserve fund.
Any discussion on the motion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $33,000 for the major repair of town roads, and to fund this appropriation by authorizing the withdrawal of said sum from the Road and Bridge Repair Capital Reserve Fund. Bill, I believe you want to make that motion.
Make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bill, you can speak to the motion.
This is the second part that I spoke about. This time we want to take $33,000 out of that account for a smaller project, which would be Bryce Drive.
Any discussion to the motion? Ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500 to be added to the Conservation Fund. Rich, I believe you want to make that motion?
I make the motion.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Rich, you can speak to the motion.
Yes. For the past few years, we've been contributing about $500 to the Conservation Fund so that they can do some work in town. With the acquisition of the land over on Lyford Road, they have some projects planned to use some of this money this coming year. Specifically, they're talking about putting up some kiosks with maps to show people where the property is and where to hike, and to lay out some hiking trails. So I believe they'll be using some of that money, if not all of that money, for that effort this year.
Does anybody wish to speak to the motion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500 to be added to the Heritage Fund. Rich, I believe you want to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Rich, you may speak to the motion.
Yes, just like the Conservation Fund, we've been putting $500 a year into the Heritage Fund for work on this building. Specifically, this past year, the Heritage Commission took the funds, some of those funds, and bought half the lights in the building, the chandelier and the sconces, and the town paid for the other half. Work that's coming in the future would be the ceiling, the outside. We have to paint. We still have work to do here. So this would be not to fund that work, but to possibly do some studies as to how to proceed with that work.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Article number 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,000 to be added to the town building office equipment expendable trust previously established. Rich, I believe you want to make that motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Rich, you can speak to the motion.
Yes, this is a fund that we've established a few years ago to deal with computer equipment, printers, other office equipment that we might have to buy for the office next door. It's effectively a savings account until we have to spend the money. We don't expect to have to buy a new computer system for a couple, 3 years. We just did that. There are other issues that come up that we have to spend money on, and we take it out of this fund.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be added to the property reevaluation expendable trust fund previously established. Rich, I believe you want to make that motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Rich, you can speak to the question.
Every 5 years, if not sooner, the town has to go through a complete reevaluation of the property. That generally costs us upwards of $30,000. We don't expect to do it for another 4 years. This deposit into our savings account would be used to fund that reevaluation that occurs in 4 or 5 years.
Is there any discussion on the question? Seeing none, if you're ready for the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be deposited into the Townhouse Expendable Trust Fund. Further, to designate the selectmen as the agents to expend. Brian, I wish you would make that motion.
Yes, I do.
Is there a second?
There is.
You're in the townhouse, and things have come a long way. We've done a lot of work. The town has really opted to invest in this building to save it. It's on the National Historic Registry. We've done the heat over. We've done all work around the foundation to allow water filtration and keep it dry under there. We've insulated. We've done all the electrical all over. Trying to think what other projects we've done. Anything else? No. There's a lot more that needs to be done, and a lot of these bigger projects are going to cost a substantial amount of money. Once again, we don't want to hit the town with one large lump sum, so we're trying to go ahead and bank money away. A couple of the projects that we're considering for the coming years, not this upcoming year, but would be the siding, painting, and also the plaster. And we're probably going to do it in that order. The outside first, the plaster is probably one of the last things to avoid any vibration damage that would occur after the fact. So we're going to continue to look to build this trust fund for a larger project on the road. And the other thing we did to this building was we redid the whole roof over as well. So we feel like we got it tightened up, safe, and now it's more of the aesthetics that we want to go ahead and tackle in the coming years.
Go ahead.
Does this say, this particular amount of money, that part of this, we're gonna repair this roof up here?
This is part of the, yes, this is part of the plaster project. We know the plaster is falling, and we need to preserve the plaster. And part of the preservation of the plaster is also the stenciling and the painting. And so it's going to be a rather expensive project. Wherever we try to see plaster coming down, we're going to try to secure it and maintain it, but not do the whole thing until the very end.
Doug, I'll remind you, you're supposed to stand and state your name. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 13, to see if the town will vote to establish a Veterans Memorial Capital Reserve Fund and raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 to be deposited into the Veterans Memorial Capital Reserve Fund. Further, to designate the selectmen as the agents to expend. Brian, I believe you want to make that motion?
Yes, I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Brian?
For the past couple of years, we've been discussing building a Veterans Memorial. It seemed like it's been stuck. It hasn't gone anywhere. So I've presented this to the selectmen as well as the Heritage, that I'd like to go ahead and establish a fund to build a memorial. Now that we have the new cemetery in place, I think it'd be a good project between the selectmen, the cemetery partners, as well as the Heritage, to go ahead and consider building a Veterans Memorial up there. I think all New England towns honor and respect their veterans. We here do, obviously, but I think we could do it in a far more established way by building a nice memorial up there. What would the total cost of this project be? It depends on how elaborate we get, but I would envision well under $10,000. And I'd just like to establish the fund now and then get some real legwork going this upcoming year.
Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead.
Frank Fraser, I'd just like to point out to everybody, if they don't know, there's a pit, that one frame on the wall right by Terry's head. If you point to it, Terry, that is our only current veterans recognition thing we have in town. Is that one little, is that what it means? It's both sides. On both sides. So that's it. It's just those two plaques. So this would be a great enhancement to honor our veterans. I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Frank, for your good example on parliamentary procedure. Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Did you want to speak? No? Okay. Anybody else? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article 14, Mary Lou, I believe you wish to phrase this one slightly differently than is in the warrant.
Yes.
You may do so.
Yes. My name is Mary Lou McLean, and I'm the town treasurer. When I was working with DRA to put these warrant articles into their portal, they informed me that they would not accept this article as it is written, because it did not have the language that we were going to raise and appropriate the funds for the increase for the supervisors of the checklist. I have rewritten the warrant article and would like to read that now and then submit it.
Please do. Please make it as a motion.
I would like to make the following motion. It's coming to me. Page 2, sorry.
Okay.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $269 to be added to the budget salaries of the supervisors of the checklist. This amount for 2016 elections will raise their hourly wage from $9 per hour to $13 per hour for services performed. This hourly compensation is to remain in effect until amended or terminated. So again, this $269 is in all of our numbers. I just need to add it because they would not accept the warrant article at the Department of Revenue Administration. I need to add it to their side of the work.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Somebody needs to second your motion before we speak to it. Is there a second? You want to second it, or do you want to speak to it? Bill, you wanted to second it, I believe.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right. Selectman Nelson asked to speak first, and then I will recognize you second. He's yielding to you. Go ahead. Please state your name.
Robert Servasic. No, it sounds good, but she mentioned the 2016 voting year, and this is 2017. Is the year correct?
No, I need to correct that.
Unless I misunderstood.
I think that you're quite correct. Mary Lou, would you like to withdraw your motion and make your motion correctly?
Certainly. Should I read it again?
Right. We are going to withdraw that motion, and I'm going to let Mary Lou make another motion.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $269 to be added to the budget salaries of the supervisors of the checklist. This amount for 2017 elections will raise their hourly wages from $9 per hour to $13 per hour for services performed. This hourly compensation is to remain in effect until amended or terminated.
Very good. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
See a second. Any discussion to the motion? Go ahead.
Harriet Wilson, Clark Road. We are in effect here replacing the current Article 14 with that language.
Yes.
As a point of order, shouldn't that be part of Mary Lou's motion?
The way the municipal election law works is that the motion that's made on the floor does not have to exactly follow the wording in the warrant as long as the same subject matter is addressed.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ernie.
I support Mary Lou's amendment, but I would ask the selectmen that perhaps for next year's warrant articles, they could make an adjustment on the pay for the ballot clerks, since they work for minimum wage?
Thank you, Ernie. I'll remind you that you're supposed to state your name when you stand up. And the selectmen can do that at their discretion at any time within their budget. Any other discussion to the motion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Mary Lou, will you make sure that the clerk has that in writing?
She has it.
Good, thank you. Article number 15, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the additional sum of $1,500 for the annual salary of the town tax collector. The current salary is $12,500. This would raise the annual salary to $14,000. Rich, I believe you wish to make that as a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Rich?
Little history on the tax collector's compensation. Years ago, the tax collector received a portion of the revenue that was brought into the town. In 2003, the town voted to put her on a salary of $12,500. It's been $12,500 since 2003. We feel it would be appropriate to increase that by the $1,500 to $14,000 a year. It's been 12 years at least.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 16, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the additional sum of $1,000 for the annual salary of the town clerk. The current salary is $13,000. This would raise the annual salary to $14,000. Rich, I believe you wish to make that as a motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Rich?
Likewise, in 2003, the town voted to take the town clerk's compensation off of a fee-based transaction where she would collect money on every transaction, and some of that would go to pay her salary, and voted to give her a salary. So in 2003, it went to the same as the tax collector was, which was $12,500. Subsequent to that, there was a warrant article to increase $500. That's why there's a difference. And likewise, we feel it's appropriate to go to $14,000 for an annual salary, given it's been a good number of years since the base salary was established.
Good. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article number 17, to see if the town will vote to establish a town garage and storage shed capital reserve fund and raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be deposited into the town garage and storage shed capital reserve fund. Further, to designate the selectmen as the agents to expend. Bill, I believe you wish to make that as a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bill, you can speak to the motion.
We have buildings in the back that are in bad repair. We have one that houses a forestry truck in the summer and has some sand, et cetera, in the other side of it. And let's say it's going to fall down at some point. We also need some repairs on the garage, which the truck is stored in for plowing, et cetera. The need for storing equipment, especially for the forestry truck and the equipment that they use, we need a place to store it rather than in somebody's house. The equipment will be addressed in the next item. So we'd like to start a fund that would allow the building of a garage that could house the forestry truck and equipment. And depending on what the town wants, we could also potentially build a larger garage and put some of the plowing equipment, et cetera, in there, the trucks.
The motion we accept it.
It's already been made.
Okay, second?
It's already been seconded. Do you wish to speak to it, Doug?
No, I 100% agree with it.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Next article is number 18. to see if the town will vote to establish a forest firefighting equipment expendable trust fund and raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be deposited into the forest firefighting equipment expendable trust fund. Further, to designate the selectmen as the agents to expend. Brian, I think you wish to make that motion?
Yes, I do.
Is there a second?
Yes?
Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
This past April, we had a relatively large forest fire on Moose Mountain. It was well taken care of by the town of Wakefield. Brookfield had responders, so on and so forth. It just sheds light on an issue that we have here, that we have a lot of forests and wildfires can occur. Brad Williamson, after the forest fire, he gave us a breakdown of how things went and how much money we had to expend, which was not a lot. But if things got out of control and we decided to call in helicopters to airdrop water, the bill goes up dramatically. We have mutual aid here in the area, but ultimately we as the town, according to Brad, have the ultimate duty to have a forest fighting operation in place. He would like to go ahead and to begin to accrue equipment. Equipment being firefighting clothing, tools, water pumps, portable water pumps, that is, stuff that we can get on the ground instantly and try to keep a fire smaller. And this is the fund that we'd like to go ahead and establish and see if we want to continue to fund it in the following years to build a stockpile of equipment that we ultimately would need.
Is there any discussion to the motion? You guys are so well behaved today. Go ahead, Ed.
Ed Comeau, 212 Stone Road. Has there been a plan put together so we know what equipment we're buying, what we need, who evaluated the need for the equipment? And is there some kind of committee that's going to form? How are we coming to this?
Brad is the forest fire warden. He presented his plan to the Board of Selectmen. He gave us a list of equipment and the rationale behind the equipment and apparel that he feels that we ultimately need in order to staff a appropriate response team. He has a good inventory of the equipment we have now, but it also seems it's been depleted and needs to be replenished and also bulked up. I'd say he has a decent plan in place. I'd like to see if maybe the forest fire wardens and deputies maybe would want to meet on at least an annual basis to inventory, go over the equipment, something like that. But that's something we can definitely talk about with Brad.
Follow up?
Go ahead.
Is there a committee going to be formed in order to put this plan together where there'll be public hearings so the public can know what's being purchased?
I don't believe we were planning on putting a committee together. We were relying upon the forest fire warden, that's his area of expertise, to go ahead and purchase this material. We can make it, I would argue that we could make this an item on our agenda, so whenever items will be purchased at the Board of Select meetings, we can discuss it there, because ultimately we're the ones who are going to be cutting checks. So I would imagine it'd be probably best presented at Board of Select meeting.
My last follow-up.
Go ahead.
I would think with the amount of money this could cost eventually in the future, that this deserves transparency, this deserves a very good plan, and we need to know exactly what's needed in order to expend this money. And also, this equipment's not cheap, so I would assume that if it's over a certain amount, there may be a bidding process that has to go on. Don't know. This could really be a very large cost for the town. We should all agree on how much we're going to pay. Thank you.
Good. Any other discussion? Over here.
Steve Bailey, Monmouth Road. Having fought forest fires and wildfires and stuff like that, when I used to live in Moultonborough, and we used to mutual aid the towns that didn't have any equipment. And the first thing we'd say when we got there, looking at the size of the fire, why don't they have their equipment? They would have saved so much property damage if they had their own equipment on hand to hit it first off before we got there. And so it's very valuable that the town at least have something that, that's beneficial.
Doug?
Doug Vanderpool, I live down the road here, 2 houses. When I took over as fire warden here in this town, and that was in 1989, I was a warden here for 20 years. And we started out here, we had a ton and a half old Army vehicle that had 4 Indian tanks on it. That was the big fire equipment that we had to start with. Over the period of time, did get a forestry unit, and we got the money appropriated to a fund that was given to us by the federal government, and we built it up to a point where we got the truck today. I believe 100%, the further down we go in the road, these towns needs more fire equipment. And a forestry unit is just the thing we need. Wakefield takes care of most of our structural fires. But when it comes to wildland fires, we have to pay them or any mutual aid that comes in here, other than what they have already appropriated to the fire department. Remember that. If we have our own unit here, we have a much better chance of putting a fire out. We had a good fire up on Tumble Down Dick Road when I was the warden. He burned about 12 acres, but it was on the bridges up there, and it was the son of a gun to get at. It took us a long time to get it. This one over here on Moose Mountain, that was, I think I said somewhere around 44 acres or something like that. We need to have our own equipment here, but we can take care of a lot of the small fires. If we have a big one like that, you have to bring in other equipment, and it's going to cost the town money. I'm not sure what JBI appropriates what charges is, but I think it's somewhere around $12,000 an hour to bring helicopters in. And that's a lot of money. We can take care of the small stuff and save the town money. I appreciate a vote in positive for this event.
Further discussion? In the back?
Road Sackler, Beacon Road. I agree with the fact that we need equipment. I just would like to add on to what Ed said about the review process, because some of the equipment that I've heard our warden talking about wouldn't have helped us get to the Tumble Down Dick fire or to the one this past year.
Good. Over here?
Dave Campbell II, Moose Mountain Road, Deputy Warden, Brookfield Fire. I was at that fire in April, spent 2 days out there using my own personal equipment to drive firefighters in and out, 5 miles from the Central Command where we were stationed at Moose Mountain. At one time, I had 5 firefighters on my ATV, driving in roughly half an hour or 40 minutes to get to the fire, because the roads out there are not maintained. We had to borrow other towns' equipment to try to set up remote water supplies to be able to fight that fire. And it really opened my eyes up to see the lack of equipment that Brookfield has to be able to fight a fire like that. Multiple municipalities showed up and fought that fire. We spent quite a bit of time out there, so I definitely see there is a need for this one.
Further discussion? Tom, you wanted to speak?
Just Tom Beeler of 76 Wentworth Road. I just would like to point out that Ospey had a major fire of the same thing. They had to bring in helicopters. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they had 3 fire departments actually in Ospey. Also, that Wolfboro, they have a new fire chief, and one of the first things that he brought up was the need to have off-road equipment to fight forest fires, because the equipment they have just won't reach where they need to get it. So it's a concern through the whole area. People should be aware of it.
Good. Further discussion? Over here?
Michelle Dean, East Mountain Road. I just wanted to mention, I think it's really important to be prepared for fires, and it's more than the equipment. So if we're building a fund to get equipment ready, we should also be considering that we're recruiting volunteers and training them, and not sure if there's an expense associated with that, but to make sure that we're kind of being prepared for that as well.
Point taken. Over here?
Diane Smith, Wentworth Road. Can't find my notes. I was at the meeting where Brad had presented his plan in the budget development process. I can't find my notes right now. First of all, I want to say I support this very much so. But in speaking to the questions that have been raised about expenses and so forth downstream, this is for a capital reserve or savings bank for those purchases. Do you remember what the target was before there would be enough funds to support some of these purchases?
Go ahead.
One of the first items that of note was a rather expensive portable pump of around, I believe, $7,000. I believe the total equipment that we're looking at, and this is hand equipment, blower, like leaf blowers, this kind of stuff. I want to say he had a target price of around 15 to 20,000. I don't have my notes either, but I remember it was definitely probably going to be double, if not more than double, what we're reserving right now. But we wanted to kind of start off with getting the pump and some of the basic tools that we need. And once we get the basic stockpile of equipment, then the next question is, do we update the forestry truck and so on and so forth. But that's where we're at. Just to follow up on Ed and everyone, I agree we need to make sure we put a good plan in place and have this done right. We don't want to go about it haphazardly, but this is our first step. But you guys all raised very valid points that we need to do this in an efficient fashion, but also we need to get the funds there so we can begin to get the plan in place.
Further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
The motion carries. Article number 19. To see if the town will vote to accept the provision of RSA 33.7, providing that any town at an annual meeting may adopt an article authorizing indefinitely until specific rescission of such authority, the selectmen to issue tax anticipation notes. Bill, I believe you wish to make that as a motion?
Yes, I do.
Is there a second?
Yes?
Bill, you want to speak to the motion?
We, as you know, we depend on tax money to pay our bills, and sometimes the tax money, because people have trouble paying their taxes, we have not enough funds to meet our obligations. We could have, I should word it that way. The idea of coming up with a tax anticipation note is for giving us permission to borrow money if needed. We have not had to use it, but we need that in place for an emergency should we have that need. As the note, county does this because of when they receive the funds, but they do it for big money. So we have approval from the bank that if needed, we can do it. We don't borrow any money ahead because we don't want to pay any interest. And it's a good process should we have that need. So this particular bill, it says, it says we'll vote to accept provision in list, providing that any town at an annual meeting may adopt an article authorized indefinitely until specified rescission of such bill. Selectmen to issue the anticipation note. So we just think this should be done and has to be brought up every year. It does not have to be brought up every year.
Any discussion on the motion? Ed?
I'm sorry. Catherine Collins,
Catherine?
Stone Road. What do you do if we don't do this? Do you have to have a special town
Yes.
meeting and ask for that? And how long is that?
Some emergencies you can cover. We have a fund through the state, which we can't really spend. We can only spend up to what the voters approve. Should we go over, there's a couple processes to go through. One would be going through DRA and get permission to use funds, extra funds. And the second would be easier for us to use the tax anticipation note as long as we don't go over that bottom figure. So if we know we need to reach that another $200,000, we can borrow that if needed, but we can never go over the amount at the bottom that's needed. So mostly it's for taxes not coming in to cover the shortage.
Ed?
Ed Comeau, Stone Road, 212. What's the percentage rate on this tax note, and do we borrow the entire amount that is collected by taxes, or do we only pay the percentage on the amount we borrow?
Only the amount borrowed. The interest rate would vary depending on when the money is borrowed. And I would switch to...
Well, the last time we had one, the interest rate was 1%. And we were looking at taking money for 2 weeks, but we didn't have to do it. It's just before the tax bills start to come in. So it's a short period of time, and the interest rate is variable based upon the going rate at that time of the year.
Bill?
The one thing that really hit us is the school board bill for the running the school. That can sometimes in the summer, they have a big hit that they have big numbers. You know, example, we might be paying $100,000 every month. Once we get into the summer months, all of a sudden that jumps to $200,000. I'm using fake numbers. That spike, we have to cover that. So we may be short because they need their money. So we may, at some point, need to borrow money, especially if the tax money's not coming in. So it's sort of an emergency backup.
Over here?
Fraser, Pleasure Road. When was the last time you guys actually had to do it? You came close a couple times, but you haven't done one of these notes for many years, is that correct?
That is correct.
Here?
Ernest Brown, Clark Road, gotta break this down. The selectmen over the years have had a continuing problem with the cash flow due to the difference between the town's billing cycle and the requirements for the school district. And I know the school district has worked with the selectmen to help avoid these tax anticipation notes. But I think this is something that you do need on the books just in case it happens. We've been fortunate due to the good management, but I support this article.
Any more discussion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
The motion carries. Article 20. To see if the town will vote to authorize the appointment rather than the election of a town treasurer per RSA 4126E. Such appointment shall be made in accordance with RSA 66917D by the Board of Selectmen. Such appointment shall be made in writing and shall include the compensation to be paid. Should this article pass, the elected treasurer will continue to hold office until the March 2018 annual election, at which time the elected office of treasurer will terminate. Rich, I believe you wish to make that as a motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second?
And I'd like to make another motion that we table this article.
Would you like to tell the town why?
Yes, when we put the article on the warrant, early this year. Subsequently, we recognized that it would be very good for the town to have a process review of all the processes in town that touch money, as well as a look at our books. So after this warrant was put on, we've contacted an accounting firm down in Concord, Polotzik, and Sanderson, a very well-renowned accounting firm, and they have agreed to come up for a fee and review our processes and take a look at our books. So we want to wait until that process is complete, the review, before we move forward with an article like this.
Good. Is there a second to the motion to table?
Second.
Second. Further discussion on the motion to table? Go ahead.
Martha Pike, on Governor's Road. I'm just wondering what gave rise to this. I mean, we haven't had any problems with an elected treasurer. At least I don't know that we have, so I'm just curious as to why you would want to change this to an appointment.
Would one of the selectmen like to answer the question?
Yes, the rationale was our treasurer is a treasurer and a bookkeeper. But the treasurer is elected. So you could elect me to be a treasurer, and I can't keep book. So we thought it would be wise to make sure that the person that was appointed to treasurer had the skill set to do both jobs.
Wouldn't you expect that a qualified person would be running to begin with, and that the town people would know it?
You can't assume that. In a lot of large towns, the treasurer is a figurehead and not the bookkeeper. In this town, they do both jobs. That was the rationale behind the original warrant article.
Further discussion on the motion to table? Go ahead.
I'm a little confused about the parliamentary procedure here.
Right.
Because in your rules of procedure to start the meeting, you said you can either vote it up or down.
Right. This year we changed the rules to allow motions to table if a reason was given that seemed reasonable. I really don't like motions to table. but it seemed that there was a valid reason for making this change to allow them to table this motion because they don't want to act and they don't want to set the precedent of voting this down because they may want to do it in the future. So that argument held sway, and that's why I opted to change the rules at the request of the selectmen. Go ahead.
Diane Smith again.
Yes.
So I'm still a little confused, sorry. If it's tabled, when does it become untabled?
Being as that this meeting would cease to exist when we adjourn the meeting, this meeting would not be able to take anything off the table, which is why I don't like motions to table in the first place. However, the argument that they did not want to set the precedent of voting down this article because they may decide they want to go forward with it after meeting with the accountant bore enough weight that I decided to allow them to do that in this circumstance. Does that make sense? No.
Sorry, no.
Okay. Well, the town is able to overrule the ruling of the moderator at any point in time. If you would like to change the rule, I would put that forward to the town as a question to disallow the motion to table. That would be a valid motion to make. Go.
Sorry, I don't mean to take the floor here.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Continuing to prompt questions. So are you saying that if the motion to table it doesn't pass,
then we go back to discussing the article as written.
Okay. But that, I'm sorry, I'm afraid that I'm still a little befuddled about this. You said that the motion would die at the end of the, in other words, if it's tabled, it's done. But you said that if the warrant article would not die, and that could be revisited by
if
the
we
Board of
vote
Selectmen?
if we vote down the warrant article, then there's a no means no rule that the DRA enforces, which would in many ways prevent them from doing anything in the next year until we hold another meeting. Whereas if we table a motion, it's in effect not taking any action on this whatsoever, and that argument held sway to me when we discussed the warrant articles before the meeting. Over here.
Susan Weiss, keeping away. Now I'm confused. If we vote not to table and we vote down the warrant article, you're saying that the selectmen cannot re-propose this at the next next annual meeting?
They could propose it at the next annual meeting, yes. That would be perfectly in order. And I personally would be happy if that were the decision of the town.
If we vote to table, does that mean then the selectmen are open to calling a special town meeting to continue with this warrant article?
They wouldn't be able to continue with it because it would be a special town meeting conveyed for whatever purpose they convene a special town meeting. Is there any further discussion on the motion to table? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The moderator is in doubt. All those in favor, please raise your hands. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Start again. I count 31. All those opposed, please raise your hands. I count 13. The motion to table passes. We move on to Article 21. To see if the town of Brookfield will rescind its regulation regarding property tax credits of $100 for veterans passed under New Hampshire RSA 7227A in 1990 and replace it with a new regulation under New Hampshire RSA 7228B effective 8/8/2016. a new regulation to give a tax credit to some veterans who were previously not qualified. The new tax credit would be raised to $250 annually to all qualifying veterans who file for the credit as stated in New Hampshire RSA 7228B. The tax credit would also apply to a surviving spouse of a qualified veteran. The new tax credit would be effective for the 2017 tax year. Rich, I believe you wish to make that as a motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Rich, do you wish to speak to the motion?
To some,
Over here.
Hill from Brookfield. I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Okay, would you like to tell the town why?
I initially circulated the petition to write up this warrant with the intention of adding veterans to the current roll and raising the credit that they would get on the taxes. As written, the town attorney has notified the selectmen that as written, this will not happen. So the people who signed the petition did it with the idea that they were going to vote for one item, and this is not included.
Okay.
I would rather see the motion be warrant table, so that it could be rewritten in a future time.
Okay. I think it's
vote not to table it. I would like everybody to vote no, so that it doesn't go through, and it will redo the future meeting.
very good. Is there a second on the motion to table?
Second.
Very good. Is there any discussion on the motion to table? Okay, all those in favor of tabling, you want to discuss, go ahead.
Terry Jones, 72 Ledford Road. I went to a selectmen's meeting here several months ago, and Ed got up and said something about the state offering up to $500 for veterans and stuff. And I came home and I was talking to Dean about it, and I said, you know, that's a lot of money that other people are going to have to make up, and so on and so forth. But to turn around and look, this gentleman here and this gentleman right here, who served 3 tours in Vietnam, spent 20 years in service and retired. I think that those people should get the full $500. You take 20 years of service, $500 is $25 a year. I served 14 and a half years. I went to Vietnam, but my name's not on this thing. Somebody who went in the reserve and spent a couple weekends or 1 or 2 weekends a year, I don't think should get the full. But somebody like Ernie or this gentleman, I think the thing needs to be rewritten. I've heard somebody say, well, you know, that'd be awful complicated to fill out. Well, you know, people have DD 214, shows when they went in, shows when they went out, so on and so forth. And if we don't have somebody that can figure out how many years that was, well, we're in sad shape, although this country's in pretty bad shape anyway. Anyhow, I second his motion to table this thing until it gets written right.
Is there any further discussion? Over here.
Susan Vivian, Farmers Road. My husband's a veteran, and you do not get a veteran status unless you participated in active duty war. You know, he was in Bosnia, so that's how he got his veteran status. So there is that, you know, the DD 214 does give all that information. So.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moderator, excuse me. One of the things that this legislation was geared toward were the folks that served between the Korean War and the Vietnam War. So there are a number of years there that somebody could have served, but never went into combat. They were sort of left out of this, the 5 approximately years. I use my brother as an example. He was in the service. He could have been called into a conflict, 24-hour notice or immediately, whatever. and he was left off. So it was felt in passing the law that the people who were ready to serve and in the military deserved the same benefit as those that were called to active duty. They were ready to, if needed. Fortunately, they were not needed. And I support the table.
Good. Any further discussion on table? Catherine, I'll let you go next.
Catherine Collins, Stone Road. I prefer that we not table this. I don't like things kind of being out there in the ether. We can rewrite it next year, repropose it, and vote on it then, and then give our veterans the benefits they need. Let's not table everything. Let's just vote it down and repropose it next year and get it right next year, because nothing will happen between now and then. There's no reason to leave it out there.
The moderator will grant that his arm got twisted to allow tabling this year. Diane, you're next.
I agree with Catherine's philosophical point. However, I have a more pragmatic question on this. I'm a little confused again because I understand that all the warrant articles go to the attorney for review before they're published. And they will publish. Is there not suggested changes that the attorney might have provided to the town?
Rich can speak to that.
Not on petitioned articles. They have to go on the way they're presented to the selectmen with some minor typographical corrections.
Very good. Rich is correct. The law states that petition articles have to appear as petition written.
Point of order, it doesn't say it's a petition article.
It does not say that.
No, it doesn't.
It's not.
Should have.
It probably should have, but that's actually not required. Tom, you're supposed to stand up and say your name.
Tom Mueller, 576 Wentworth Road. No, it was a petition article.
I understand. Is there further discussion on the motion to table? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Nay. The motion fails. We're back to discussing the article as written. Is there any discussion on the article as written? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. The motion fails. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the selectmen's recommended sum of $696,015 for the town operating budget. Said sum does not include special or individual articles addressed in this warrant. Brian, I believe you wish to make that as a motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
Yes.
I turn everyone's attention to the yellow handout because that we need to do some tweaking to this. We inadvertently left out the land purchase. We've entered into what is essentially a mortgage with the property seller. We pay her $30,000 a year. That was voted in last year that we would do that. It's no longer a warrant. We kind of had it in our mindset that $30,000 should have been a warrant, but when in all reality, it's an operating budget item. So we needed to add $30,000 to the budget. Furthermore, on the item that Rich spoke about, when we're retaining the services of a municipal CPA, for the contract is going to be approximately $5,000 for this year. We would put that in as in a selectman expense item, and so we would need to add $5,000 to the 726. So the new total that I would look to go ahead and get approved would be $731,015.
Are you making a motion to amend?
I am.
Is there a second on the motion to amend?
Second.
Second. We are now discussing the motion to amend. Is there any people who want to discuss the motion to amend? Go ahead.
Diane Smith, so the $5,000 for the financial review or
Yeah, CPA, just for lack of better.
CPA activity, why would we not have that under financial administration?
Because I believe that the selectmen are controlling that actual review, so it is actually an administrative function of the selectmen right now.
If it were an audit? All right, never mind. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to amend? Go ahead, Diane.
Excuse me, sorry, one other. The land payment is in is in the current budget that was published. It is listed under capital outlay. So you're simply shifting that, it was in the budget. On page 20, at the bottom. It wasn't in the operating budget. So I think we just need to be clear.
Point well taken, I see it there as well.
So what happened?
It's listed.
So,
It wasn't, it needs to be for this warrant article that, I'm sorry. My name is Mary Lou McLean. So it isn't in the operating budget, and that's what you're approving with this last warrant article.
okay, so
So
in the,
it needs to be in, the 30,000 needs to be in the operating budget.
all right, because we did not put it in our line, our tally for the operating budget. We put it in for the proposed budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I knew there was a rationale behind it.
So is the intention of your motion to strike out where it's listed later on page 20 here as well?
No, I don't think we would. No, we wouldn't strike that.
Okay,
No, because it's not a warrant article.
okay. We're good. Any other discussion on the amendment? Tom, go ahead.
So what is the figure?
The operating budget figure is $731,015.
Okay. So putting the 30,000 into it.
That's with the 30,000 plus the 5,000. And that's for the operating budget.
Go ahead, Diane.
So, I'm sorry, is it being removed from the capital budget?
They just said that that is not part of their motion.
Okay, I don't understand how you can call it a capital outlay and having it on an operating budget for total. Last year, it was under capital outlay as per the, on page 20, it was listed as a capital outlay. We spent the $30,000, and then it was suggested that we do the same thing all over again this year.
Well, last year we did it as a warrant. This year it's not a warrant. This year it is an operating budget line item expense.
That's correct.
So they're two different things.
As a point of information, the article that was passed last year is on page 7 and 8 of the town report. And you can see by reading the article that was passed last year that they raised and appropriated $30,000 for the first year's payment. They did not raise and appropriate money for subsequent year's payment in the article that was passed last year. Go ahead, Frank.
Frank, just to clarify, so I know that right, is that the budget that Diane's referring to, the page 20 that ends on page 21, is proposed budget, but we're actually voting on page 22, which is the operating budget, and that's where it didn't be included. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. My
It
understanding
is in the master budget, included in the master budget, but we're actually not voting on that, we're actually voting on page 22 right now.
Correct.
That is correct. My understanding of how DRA works is it makes absolutely no difference that it says purchase of town land on the bottom of page 20. If the money was never raised and appropriated by the town meeting, they will not raise and appropriate the money if we never voted to do so. Your point is well taken. Any further discussion on the amendment? Ernie?
Just a point of clarification, what's the final figure? 731,000 and
$731,015. And
If this amendment passes, that's what the figure would then be, subject to further amendments and everything else that the town meeting decides to do. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment passes. So now back to discussing the operating budget, which is now $731,015. Is there any further discussion on the operating budget? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Is there any other business that people wish to bring before the town? Go ahead, Diane.
Diane Smith again, sorry. One thing that has been of concern to me for a couple of years that I've been involved in the budget drafting process and monitoring is our costs for services that we purchase outside of the community. And I've talked to privately and perhaps even publicly with Board of Selectmen, and so I would ask, do I need to have this as a formal written request?
If you wish to make a motion, it would be good to have it in writing, but I haven't heard a motion yet, so.
So my motion is this. This is to gauge the sense of the community, to help guide the Board of Selectmen in moving forward with whether or not it's appropriate to have a committee of residents, voters, to help review the municipal services that we purchase and the contracts for such services. And that would be my motion.
Very good. And you will provide it in writing at some point in time to the clerk so that she knows exactly what we're voting on. Very good. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Very good. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there a discussion? Go ahead.
Is this a non-binding motion, or is this just a straw poll?
This is a sense of the meeting. I believe that's how you phrased it. Sense of the meeting is not binding on the Board of Selectmen. DRA is perfectly willing to let us pass any motions we want to as long as they don't spend money. So I don't think it would be disallowed on that basis.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Bill.
This issue has come up many times over the years that I've been on the board. People have looked into it, and basically Wakefield has said, if you, for example, just want to get rid of one part, it's all or none. That's basically what they have said. And I totally agree what they're trying to accomplish. And I have no problem with that. All other reviews of trying to figure out things have not worked, and maybe they've changed their mind over in Wakefield. We also cannot get them mad at us because we need them. They know that. They have us under their thumb. We recognize that, and there's nothing much we can do about it. So all I ask is, I think the idea is wonderful, but proceed with caution so you don't get people ticked off and all of a sudden they set the rate. We have little to say, and I totally agree with Diane what she's trying to accomplish to see that we get a fair rate. I just ask that they use caution as they proceed.
Sometimes it helps your negotiations too, to let them know that you're answerable to somebody too. So
Yep.
I can see that side of it as well. Go ahead, Tom.
So again, Tom Bueller, 576 Memorial. I just would advise people that since the newspaper that I edit covers the whole area, Wakefield is a very cheap town. I mean, honestly, they're out to make it more cheaper. They're not looking for they're not out of control or they're prudent and reasonable, service. It's not that, I mean, if you just compare the fire budget between Ospey and Wakefield, that'll give you some idea of what you're dealing with.
Diane, I'll let other people speak first. Who else wants to speak before I give Diane another chance? Ernie, you may go ahead.
Chris, around the Clark Road. I think if we had the statistical data in front of us, we would see that Wakefield has gone out of their way to be very moderate in their increases. It's not going to help them correct me, but they've really given us a very fair price on the services provided. And so I would not want to upset them with no documentation or understanding of how reasonable it is.
Good. Anybody else before I give Diane the floor again? Ed, then Diane.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I believe this Brookfield is not Wakefield. I see no issue with coming together to just discuss. I mean, I hear things we're going to tick people off, we're going to upset Wakefield. That's not the issue. The issue is we should understand what we're paying for. If it's a good price, then we agree that it's a good price. We know what we're paying for, and we move on. There's no reason why we can't come together and discuss that. That's good for the town. It's Brookfield, not Wakefield. Thank you.
It's true, the committee could get together and report that we're having a good deal. Diane, go ahead. Rich, go ahead. Diane, yields to you.
The proposal that I think Diane put on the table is broader than, I think, Wakefield. It includes the school board, it includes the rec department, it includes all outside contracts that the town might have for services. And to be smart in that area, I think, is good. We don't have to take any action, but it's good to get an understanding and the data associated with our expenses. So I'd recommend we form a committee and look into that.
Good. As a selectman, you can do that whenever the town decides, but it's nice to have the town behind you. Diane, go ahead.
Thank you. So just to get a sense of some of my concerns, I have been focusing largely on Wakefield because, quite frankly, the school budget is just daunting, and I'd like to focus on something that we can get our heads around first. When I looked at the way that bill comes to us from Wakefield, it was pretty appalled. We pay 10% administration fee on everything. The entire bill they slap on a 10% admin fee, and I can't imagine why. That's about $25,000 this year. Furthermore, a couple of years back in the town report, where it was detailed for the solid waste section that they provide for us, that report, a couple of years ago, they inadvertently included not only the cost, the gross cost for the solid waste that year, but they inadvertently put in the revenue that they took in. The difference between their gross cost, I don't have the numbers in front of me, we're pretending to go into this detail today, and what the net cost to the town of Wakefield was just about maybe, I think it was less than $5,000 more than what we paid. So for the entire year, the town of Wakefield taxpayers paid $5,000 for using their transfer station. We paid the lion's share of that. We paid essentially the entire net cost that year. I don't have the numbers for subsequent years because that was the only year that I had. For the ambulance service, on this year's bill, it's about $132,000 for the entire cost of ambulance service in the bill that came to us. Not our share, the total town share for Wakefield. I went to their deliberative section. The subject of the ambulance came up, and it was revealed that the revenues that the ambulance takes in is about $130,000 a year. We don't see any of that. We're paying on the gross cost. But even if we paid at the gross cost and not asked for paying for the net cost of those services, I did a calculation based on a more reasonable way of distributing the costs. Instead of looking at the OEP's, Office of Energy and Planning's, identified population level numbers for Wakefield and Brookfield, which is how they're divvying up the expenses. Right now we're at about 12%. We have about 6% of the police calls, fewer than that for fire and ambulance calls, and our dump usage is also tagged with that percentage, when in fact the dump stickers, the transfer station stickers that Virginia sells are a far smaller percentage than 12%. I think it was around, 6 to 8% of the total stickers. When I redid the calculations,
again, using just gross costs that are the costs that they've been attributing to us, their overall gross costs, then we would save almost $100,000 in that 1 year, just readjusting the percentages to be a more reasonable use, what we use, not based on population. How many times do you go down to the transfer station in the summer and see in the line of trucks and cars, a lot of Massachusetts plates? They're not counting their summer residents. And they even acknowledged when they reviewed their transfer station rules within the last year or so that they have a higher rate of use in the summer. Well, I don't think that's fair, and I think that it's time that we have a discussion. Bill is right. I think we need to have alternatives. I don't have the answers. I do know that there are other people in town that have also had this concern and have folders probably as thick as mine. And I think that I'm really pleased that the board is willing to pursue this community discussion, and I hope that other people can get as excited or depressed as I am. So, thank you.
Good. Further discussion?
Yes.
New people before I recognize people who've already spoken.
Sure, don't worry. It's Michelle Lee from East Mountain Road. I just wanted to mention that I think that if the town is starting to consider about bringing more services here, for instance, expanding local firefighting capabilities and all that kind of stuff, this type of data, what we're spending, outsourcing things would be really helpful in making decisions about what we're going to focus on expanding, I think.
Bill, you're next.
I appreciate it, and I totally agree with Diane and what she's trying to accomplish. But we have tried over the years, we're going back a ways, to try to work with them to make adjustments. At one point, one of the people got him so mad, we could no longer converse with them in hopes of making a better, a more appropriate deal for the town of Brookfield. So my comments were reflecting that, based on a past experience where somebody really were badgering them that backfired. So that's why I use the word go with caution, and I certainly applaud what you're trying to do, and I do think numbers could be more in our favor.
Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Diane, I think you just volunteered for your committee. Motion carries. Is there further business to come before the town? Rich, I'll recognize you.
Yes, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Bill Nelson. This is his last meeting as a selectman, unless he decides to run again and gets reelected. He's dedicated a lot of time to the town. We appreciate it, and we'd like to give you a little thank you. And let me read it to you. It's not just a plate. Presented by the residents of the town of Brookfield, New Hampshire, to William Nelson in recognition of his many years of dedicated service as a Brookfield selectman. The only problem is the date's wrong. We have the 14th. That's Tuesday. We didn't know it was going to snow. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. I've been a selectman for 15 years, and if I try to list all the selectmen that I've worked with, it would be too long a list. Especially with some new people here. You're in a unique situation here in Brookfield. We encourage and we seek the new people to participate in our town. In many New England towns, you have to be there, umpteen years before you came. I was asked to be a selectman and run when I was only here 2 years, and I did run. And I do encourage everybody, get involved in the town. There's more organizations. Diane, I'm sure, is going to need help on her committee. There's all sorts of positions that need to be filled, and we seek your assistance in making the town operate better. And again, I thank everybody.
Thank you. Anything else to come before the meeting? Ed?
I have a parliamentary inquiry. How, if I wanted to put in a motion, can I do that now?
The floor is yours.
I would like to motion that we actually have our town meeting on the Saturday after voting. It seems like everybody's awake and excited, and we can all see, and it's easier, it's during the day. I think it would be a much better welcome change. I know it's a tradition to have it during the week, but I just see, everybody else just seems more happy today.
Are you making this as a sense of the town motion, or do you really want to go through the legal process of changing the town meeting?
I don't see why we can't change the town meeting. I made a motion.
You can make a motion, but RSA 39-2A says what has to happen is a petition by 25 voters needs to be sent to the selectmen, who will then place it on the ballot at the next annual meeting, which would be next March. And if it passes, it would become effective 2 years from now. I would be willing to entertain this as a sense of the meeting motion, but if you want to do it legally, I will unofficially appoint you chairman of the
My first motion would be to see if the sense is that they would like it, and if that passes, I would put the motion back in order and get the signatures now. Can I do that?
Very good. We have a sense of the town motion on whether we should go forward with the process of bifurcating the town meeting so that we can hold town meeting on Saturday like we did this year. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Very good. Any discussion on the motion?
I just, Frank Fraser, I'd just like to point out that Ron Fountain, who's not here today, made exactly that motion with the 25 signatures. What was it, 3 years ago?
It was 7 years ago when I first took office.
Boy, time flies in the end. He stood out there all day during election day and handed out little slips and encouraged people to vote for it, and it failed. By not too much, but it failed. So perhaps people have changed their minds, and today is a great example of why Saturday meetings are a good idea. But we've tried it once before.
Very good. Any other discussion to the motion? Go ahead.
Diana Peckham, Palmer Drive. Just wondering, is there any way to expedite this so that we could, if people wanted it on Saturday, we could have it that way next year? Or does it have to go through another year before it reaches that point?
To answer your question, Brookfield is the best represented town in the legislature. Your representatives could try to put a state law in to change RSA 39-2A. I suspect that would be difficult. What we could do next year, and if this is what the selectmen advise, we could plan on calling the town meeting to order at the same time at 7 o'clock on the Tuesday like we always have done, and then recess the meeting to the following Saturday, and we could do that as an interim measure while this process is going forward, if that's the sense of the town. I'm quite amenable to doing that if that's what the selectmen want to do. But as far as the legal process is concerned, it's pretty well laid out in the statutes, and I don't think any motion passed by this meeting can supersede state statutes. Is there any further discussion to the motion on the floor? Diane, I'll let you go next.
Following up on Diana's question, is it not possible for there to be a petition for a special town meeting?
Yes, you could have a special town meeting, but this is a warrant article that has to be passed at the official balloting on the second Tuesday in March. So I think that would be ineffective in the purpose that you want to do. I believe somebody over here wants to speak.
Pam Skeffington, question about your suggestion about having it convened on Tuesday, but then postponed till Saturday?
I didn't say postpone, I said recessed.
Recessed. Is there a number of how many people have to be here on Tuesday and a proportion of that number to be able to do that? And if so, would there be, and it's sent out to people in ahead of time so they might be prepared for that?
No, there is not. That was the procedure that was followed for rescheduling town meetings prior to 1998 in the event of weather issues. When the RSA that we exercised on Tuesday that gave the moderator authority to reschedule this meeting was put into place. But the old procedure is still possible. We could do that if we needed to. I don't see any way that we could accelerate the process at this point in time, practically. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion carries. Is there any further business to come before the meeting? Martha?
I would just like to mention that the notice of the change of meeting and the not changing of voting did not appear on the town website, and it did not appear on WMUR. I checked both of them, and I think it should have. The final notice said Brookfield is closed. What does that mean? The town office is closed, and I don't think it's enough just to have a notice on the bulletin board.
Yes, I agree with you, Martha. What the statute says is the moderator will make every effort practical when he needs to reschedule the town meeting because of weather. I personally called WMUR. I pointed out to them that saying that Brookfield was closed was misleading, and they told me that this referred to the school. I later in the day spoke to them, and they told me that they would correct it, so it was clear that that was not the elections. Later in the day, when we did make the decision to postpone the town meeting, I called them up, and they did promise me that they would put that notice up. Clearly, that did not happen. However, the way the statute reads, it asks me to notify them. What they do with that notice is something that is entirely beyond my control. Yes, you may.
I also spoke to them and told them that we were having the election, so we postponed the town meeting until today. So they should have had that, but when you just see Brookfield closed, that means the school, it doesn't mean anything else. You have to specify like that we were closed for the election. They didn't do that. But it was on the website.
It was not on the website.
Yes, it was, because several people put it on.
Well, it must have been hidden somewhere. There wasn't a notice of the town meeting on the website that I saw.
Would somebody like to speak to the website? Who's in charge of maintaining the website?
Rose?
Yeah, I guess I'm the one that's volunteered here. Rose Acker. We did attempt to put a notice on the website. Unfortunately, the mechanism for sending out the emails that saying that town meeting was moved and the selectmen's meeting was moved did not get triggered. And we're trying to correct that. What we neglected to do was put on the website that voting was happening, but we did post that town meeting and the selectmen's meeting were being moved to today. I don't, it might have been a timing thing, Martha, I hope, but it was there.
Well, it might have been that it wasn't right up front when I got on the website.
It could be, yeah. Sometimes the news article notices don't go in date order, and we don't understand why.
In the back.
Jean Jones, Lakewood Road. I just wanted to say that it did eventually get on WMUR, that Brookfield's voting had been moved, but it was like after 8 o'clock at night.
I'm sure they had lots of things to post then.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to ask the crowd, how many here have internet at home? Okay. Is everybody aware that you can, if you cannot make it to your selectmen's meetings or your planning board meetings, they are available to be watched so you know what your elected officials are doing? Are you aware of that? At GovernmentOversite.com, you know that?
Are you live streaming now?
No, it doesn't.
Any further discussion? Anything else to come before the meeting? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yes. Second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The meeting is adjourned. Those people who were elected to town offices will please stay and get sworn in.
I ain't got it on the wall.
Wants to stay sitting or wants to stay?
Whatever you want to do. You bet.
Take care.